In November of 2012, video game publisher THQ announced that they had defaulted on a $50 million loan with Wells Fargo. By December 19th, their fate was sealed as they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and started liquidating company assets. Franchises like Warhammer 40,000 went to Sega, with contracts like Nickelodeon going to Activision. But what would happen to the WWE series? In January of 2013, Take-Two Interactive, the parent company of publishers Rockstar and 2K, purchased the rights to the WWE video games. And to the surprise of some, they announced that they would not only retain the longtime developer Yuke's for future releases, but would also retain the staff from THQ that worked on previous games in the series. And in October of that very same year, the first game of the WWE 2K era was released. This is my review of WWE 2K14 for the PS3. With WWE 13 focusing on the Attitude Era, there were a lot of wrestlers from that time period included in the game. Here, the main mode of play focuses on the history of WrestleMania, and the roster reflects that. You'll see a selection spanning many decades, including legends from just about every time period within the company. Names like Batista, Big Show, Diesel, Goldberg, Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, Yokozuna, and more. Over on the current roster, some debuts into the series include the likes of Darren Young, Titus O'Neil, and The Shield. There are a few notable missing superstars like the Usos, Alex Riley, Curtis Axel, Primo, and Epico, but a lot of that probably has to do with the inclusion of so many legends. In the form of DLC, we get the likes of Fandango, Big E Langston, Rick Rude, and Jake the Snake Roberts, amongst others. We also see the inclusion of the NWO pack, which consists of Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Randy Savage, Kurt Hennig, Scott Steiner, Six, and The Giant. Combine this with the already included Hollywood Hogan, and you have a pretty impressive NWO roster. There are also two versions of Hall and Nash, in addition to their Diesel and Razor Ramon personas, each with their own unique look and two different entrances. So for example, if you select Scott Hall, there's a noticeable change from Razor Ramon when they make their way to the ring. With so many versions of the same wrestlers, it's easy to see why certain fans of the series were upset. Lucky for me, these are some of my favorite wrestlers, so I wasn't really bothered by it. One thing that did bother me is the fact that with all these NWO wrestlers included in the game, in addition to Goldberg, there's not a single WCW arena to be found. I would have even taken one of the custom arenas from WWE 12, but instead I was forced to create my own. There are, however, many classic WWF arenas. In fact, every single WrestleMania from the 1st to WrestleMania 29 is included here. There's even a WrestleMania 30 arena, but since this game was released before that event took place, it's a concept arena. Sadly, there are no other classic pay-per-view or weekly show arenas in the game. However, many stages from other classic shows are featured in the Create an Arena mode, which we'll jump into in a bit. Updated arenas for Raw and SmackDown can also be seen here, as well as the new NXT arena, in addition to pay-per-view events from 2012 and 2013. Entrances feature a lot of reused animations, not only from last year, but even from games like Legends of WrestleMania, released back in 2009. While the controls have remained the same now for a few entries, there are a few other gameplay changes introduced as part of Predator Technology 3.0, so let's take a look. Everything associated with navigation has been overhauled, meaning walking, running, and dragging animations are all completely new in an effort to appear more lifelike. Overall movement has also been sped up, making the pace of a match quicker than games of recent. In an attempt to stop spammers from abusing the run feature, Yuke's has incorporated a new startup animation for running, which also helps with realism. Other random non-controllable animations have been added, like a wrestler calling for his opponent to get up or simply adjusting his wrist tape. With the speed of everything amped up a bit, strikes come a lot quicker and in return are a bit harder to counter. And speaking of reversals, we see changes here as well, with counters immediately transitioning into moves automatically instead of leading to more grapple-ready positions. Catapult finishers are an expansion of the catching finishers that debuted last year. These moves require an opponent to be running towards the player, at which point they'll be launched into the air and immediately fall victim to a finisher. The catching moves have also returned, and then some, with quite a few additions this year. There are 7 all-new OMG moments in addition to those that debuted last year. You can now perform the boot to the head at the ring post, or DDT your opponent on the apron, as well as perform the Undertaker signature dive through the ropes, or even tackle your opponent through one of the Elimination Chamber enclosures. And if these aren't enough to satisfy your addiction for punishment, they've also included all new multi-man OMG moments, allowing one wrestler to perform a move on multiple victims. There are 3 inclusions here, and they consist of the Attitude Adjustment, the Shell Shock, and the Chokeslam. We also see a few smaller features added this year, like a new weapon in the form of a baseball bat for the Extreme Rules match, which replaces the mop. Last year they added the resiliency feature to the pin system. Here you can now use it during a breakout submission as well. And while most audio features remain the same, we do see some new voiceovers included in taunts and entrances, so Daniel Bryan will actually yell out "no" during his entrance. Visually, the graphics engine is starting to age a bit at this point, not looking much better than they did many games ago, but I'd say all in all it doesn't affect the overall entertainment aspect of the game. Let's take a look at some of the new Creation Suite features for 2K14. Superstar Heads was something that was quite anticipated since its announcement. Here you can select from a variety of different WWE wrestlers' heads as a starting point for a created wrestler. So whereas Superstar Threads only lets you edit the colors of an attire, this lets you create any type of clothing options you'd like, or you can select from a series of pre-made attires. The only thing you can't edit are the facial features and hair of the wrestlers. Initially, there were 14 heads to choose from, including Chris Jericho, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Edge, and John Cena, but more were added by the way of DLC. We still see the Superstar Threads mode included here, which now allows for entrance attires to be edited. The Create a Wrestler mode doesn't see a whole lot of change, but there are some new parts to choose from, as well as an increase in created wrestler slots, now allowing up to 100. The Create an Arena mode returns with even more options than before, with new stage selections including numerous WrestleMania stages, No Mercy 2005, and Survivor Series 2008, just to name a few. There are also new venue sizes, 3 different crowd types, and the addition of screen filters that represent different periods in wrestling. Last year we saw the ability to edit current titles into our own custom creations. This year they've expanded on that with the option to create new championships from scratch. You can select from different templates, change colors, and add logos. Even custom logos are supported here. With all the additions over the years, it's only a matter of time before something gets removed, and that's exactly what happened to the highlight reel, which has now been replaced with a generic replay system. With that, the ability to create custom Titantron videos is also gone. The Streak mode is a new gameplay feature that revolves around the Undertaker's then undefeated WrestleMania streak. You can choose to try to defeat the Undertaker's streak as you take the dead man on at WrestleMania with a wrestler of your choosing. Here you'll see unique abilities exclusive to this mode, such as Taker turning the lights out and appearing behind the player. If you decide to play as the dead man and defend the streak, you'll take on a series of wrestlers in a row, trying to defeat as many as possible in a format that's very similar to the Slobber Knocker match type that was once featured in the series, which also returns here in 2K14, but needs to be unlocked before it's playable. With this match type returning, the Championship Scramble match has been removed. Last year, the Attitude Era mode focused on two very explosive years for the company. This year, they take it a step further and celebrate the company's historic annual spectacle event that is WrestleMania. There are 46 matches covering 30 years of the big show. Not that big show. And they're set up as 5 different chapters, or eras. The first era, Hulkamania Runs Wild, spans from WrestleMania 1 through 9, featuring matches like Hulk Hogan vs. Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, and Bret Hart vs. Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9, just to name a few. The new generation portion takes place between WrestleMania 10, where we see the famous ladder match between Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels, to WrestleMania 13, where Stone Cold Steve Austin vs. Bret Hart is showcased. The Attitude Era only features 4 matches, which is understandable seeing as last year's mode focused exclusively on this period. You can relive moments like the Fatal 4-Way match at WrestleMania 2000 or Austin Rock at WrestleMania 17. Ruthless Aggression features 12 matches spanning from WrestleMania 18, where you can play out the meeting between The Rock and Hollywood Hogan, all the way to WrestleMania 24, where we see Shawn Michaels vs. Ric Flair in a retirement match. In between, you'll see other classics like Rock and Austin at WrestleMania 19, and you'll even get to play out the masterpiece that was Lesnar vs. Goldberg at WrestleMania 20. Not sure why that one made it in. And the final chapter is the Universe Era, which is WrestleMania 25 through 30, and takes us to matches like Batista vs. Cena at WrestleMania 26, and Brock Lesnar vs. Triple H at WrestleMania 29. Just like last year, these matches are all put together with incredible video packages, dishing out interviews, match clips, and promos, educating those that may have missed some of these matches, and reminding others just how epic some of them were. Each decade is replicated almost perfectly, with arenas featuring screen filters that add grain and on-screen graphics that match those featured at each event. With 30 years of matches here, it's safe to say that just about any wrestling fan can enjoy this mode. Me, for example, I'm not a huge fan of the newer product, but I still found it hard to put this mode down even after passing through the years that I enjoyed most within the company. There are still bonus objectives that need to be completed to unlock items, but just like WWE 12, we see the occasional mandatory objective that must be completed to progress. I feel like this mode is what Legends of WrestleMania was trying to be, but it works a lot better here. We pretty much get 2 games in one, and that alone is reason enough to purchase this game in my opinion. So what's the final verdict on the game? The roster might be missing a few names, but it's probably the most diverse roster we've ever seen in a wrestling game, spanning many decades. And the inclusion of the NWO was greatly appreciated by people like me. While Predator Technology 3.0 doesn't add a whole lot, it doesn't take anything away from the gameplay. The new animations help bring the game one step closer to reality, while the speed increase takes it a step back. Additions like the new OMG moments, catapult finishers, and the ability to create championships and superstar heads are a definite plus, but the removal of the highlight reel as well as the championship scramble is a bit of a bummer. And the 30 years of WrestleMania mode should satisfy just about any wrestling game fan regardless of what era they love most. This is one that I highly recommend you play if you haven't already, if not strictly for the story mode. Just like most recent wrestling titles, it can be had for fairly cheap, so pick it up and give it a try. Well, that's it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, as always, and just because we're getting close to the last game in the series that I've yet to review doesn't mean this show's over yet. There are plenty of other wrestling titles that I plan on working on, including imports. And on top of that, I will be doing a few more re-reviews, so stay tuned for more Spotlight video game reviews, and thanks for watching.